Welcome to Polyglot Podcast. I'm Christian. I'm here in Rovaniemi, northern Finland. Today I have Alex as my guest, and we are going to talk about Alexander's language background, the application he has developed, his mother tongue Ladin, what it is, where it's spoken, and all the basic stuff about this language. So first of all, Alex, how are you doing?
Hi, Christian. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm doing great. Thanks a lot. This is my first podcast with you. Actually, my first podcast, I think, generally in my life. And yes, I'm doing great. I wanted to mention beforehand that I stammer a little bit, so sometimes I might get stuck in a word, but don't worry, I'll just breathe and then continue.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So first of all, maybe we go some basic things about you, like where are you currently? Is that your hometown as well? What do you do in life? How old are you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so my name's Alex Senoner. I grew up in the Alps, in Italy, on the Italian side of the Alps, in a region called South Tyrol. And I've been living now in the Netherlands for the past 4.5 years. I live in the city of Leiden, and I work here as a civil engineer. That's my main daytime job. And for the past 1.5 years, I've been working on a language app, a language learning app called LinguaMers. I think maybe we can put the link later in the this description. Yeah, I grew up speaking quite a lot of language. I grew up speaking three languages. South Tyrol is a rather multilingual region, and most people there grow up speaking several languages, and that definitely helped me a lot on my language learning journey. But later on, what helped me the most is, of course, the passion to keep on learning and to keep discovering different languages.
All right, there's a lot of things to ask about you, but I think we could start from your background, from your hometown, from the
Mhm.
place where you were born, and then talk about your native language and South Tyrol. So, what was the city called where you were born?
It's a village. It's in Italian. It's called Selva di Val Gardena. In German, it's called Wolkenstein. So very different name. And in Latin, it's called Selva. It has a population now of 2,600 people, so it's very small. You pretty much know everybody there, and
Yeah.
and it's one of the few places which are where the majority of the population is native Ladin speaking. So for the people who don't know, Ladin is spelled with a D, with a soft D, so it's not Latin.
Or
There
Ladino.
yeah, and yeah, there is also another language called Ladino, which is a different one. It's a language that is it's basically I think Spanish based on Hebrew, or it's a
Yeah,
Spanish dialect. Yeah,
Judeo-Spanish.
Judeo-Spanish language. Ladin in Italy is also in Italian. It's also called Ladino. So in that sense, it's the same name, but in English, and it's called Ladin, and in Latin itself also.
And the closest languages are Romansh and Friulian.
Yes, basically, that's how it's categorized. Latin is categorized by linguists as a Rhaeto-Romance language. There are also a few people who might dispute that, but that's generally the accepted categorization. and therefore it is grouped together with Romansh, which is spoken in Switzerland, and f and Friulian, which is spoken in a region of Italy called Friuli, which is in the far northeast. Yeah. But it is basically, it's very difficult to categorize these languages, I think. And in the end, all these languages, also Romansh and Friulian, they have a lot of similarities and overlaps with pretty much all the northern Italian dialects slash languages. So languages like Lombard, Piemontese, Emilian, they all have very similar grammar and vocabulary and so on.
I read that Latin has five main variations, but I guess what I learned from my Bavarian guest, like she told that, I mean, the Bavarian her mom and dad speak is a bit different, although it's like 10 kilometers the distance.
Mm.
So, and it's a like dialect continuum. So it is, I would guess the situation is a bit similar in Latin.
Yeah, it is. And especially because of the geography that in the Alps, they're like everybody lives in a certain valley, basically. And Ladin is spoken in five different valleys, and every valley speaks it differently. But then within the valley, it's quite hom homogeneous. There is one valley, Val Badia, which has bigger differences across the valley, but the valley where I grew up, which is called Gardaina, has a quite it's quite homogeneous across the valley.
I read the other valleys are Fascia, Foelon, Anpen in Latin. Uh, I
Mhm.
don't know how to pronounce them. Maybe you can tell them.
Yeah, Fascia, Fodom, Valbadia, and Ampezzo is one where there's the town Cortina d'Ampezzo, which will actually host the Winter Olympic Games next year. Um, and but yeah, there are the level or the amount to which Ladin is spoken in each valley varies quite a lot.
So, where are your parents from? Are they both from the Valley of Gardena?
Yeah, they are. My parents, they both grew up and have lived their whole life in the valley of Gadaina, as have actually all my ancestors back to the 16th century almost, or
Oh,
17th
wow.
century. We have at home a family tree, and it shows that yeah, they all lived basically in the same valley, so there's not a lot of variation, let's say. Yeah.
How big is the family tree? Do you have only the paternal lineages, or is it both? Like the
Yeah,
paternal and
both.
maternal, like then it must be a huge family tree.
Yeah, I think that I have both, and yeah, both have been living in the same valley, and I was that also causes the fact that a lot of people are distantly related with each other. For example, when I was in primary school, I told a classmate of mine that my great grandmother was 95, and he said that his great grandmother was also 95, and
The
later we
same.
found out it's the same person, which I didn't know.
Well, I guess if your city has your not city but village has 2,000 people, then that's expected.
Yeah, yeah.
In one valley, do you have one town, or every valley has multiple towns?
Most valleys have multiple towns. In Gardena, there are three main villages, and they all have between 2,000 and 4,000 inhabitants. So the value of Gardena has 10,000 inhabitants. And the others, like Fascia, Valbadia, they are a bit, they are larger by geography. They have maybe six or seven villages, but each village is smaller, so that their total population is also around 10,000. And Fadom is much smaller. I think the whole valley only has like 1,500 inhabitants. That is a valley that has had a quite a difficult history and a lot of emigration. And Ampezzo is a very touristic area and very famous because it already hosted the Olympic Games once and now is going to host them again. And so it is also much more international, I would say, and has a lot of non-Ladin speaking people living there.
Okay, yeah. But yours has mostly Latin speakers.
Yeah. They actually do a census every 10 years where people need to declare what their mother tongue is. And this is across all of South Tyrol. And I think last time in my hometown, 90% or 89% declared their mother tongue to be Ladin. And yeah, there are very, very few people in my hometown with whom I would not speak Ladin. And I would speak with them either Italian or German, but they would also understand Ladin. They just wouldn't speak it.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I just checked. It's almost all the municipalities of South Tyrol have 91 to 97%. Okay, there are three that have 84 to 89, and Chastel, or how do you say this, 15.
Yeah, Chastel. Yeah, because that is it's one. I mean, these there are municipalities, and one municipality might actually contain several smaller villages. And this municipality of Chastel mainly does not lie in the valley of Gardena, but it has a little part that covers the valley of Gardena, and in that part, people speak Latin. But compared to the whole municipality, then it's only 15%, like you said.
Yeah. Uh, is Günther Steiner from South Tyrol? Wasn't
Um,
do you know who I'm talking about? Okay,
Sorry.
so I guess you don't watch Formula One. He's a really
Not so much,
yeah,
no.
he's really famous. He was a team boss, so not
Oh,
even a driver. What about, do you know the mountain climber who was the first one to,
Reinhold Messner?
oh, Missner, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
He's
He grew up from in a valley that is adjacent to Gardena. It's to the north. It's called Vilnius in German, and in Latin Funes. And that valley actually also people also used to speak Latin there until the 1600s. So until the 1600s, there were more regions that spoke Latin, and that gradually became Germanized. And now basically the Latin language is limited to these five valleys. In the municipality of Chastel, actually, 400 years ago, also the whole municipality spoke Latin, um, and um, and the name itself is also Latin. It means castle, and in German it's called Kastelruth, but that's also um, a Latin name. Basically, it's not a Germanic name.
yeah, yeah. So I also read that, yeah, because of the mountains, Latin was isolated and preserved.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Also, if you look at the valley of Gardena, when you enter the valley, it is through a very, very narrow gorge where it's even very difficult, would have been also back then very difficult to walk. And that's why it remained rather isolated, and that's how the language survived for a very long time. Yeah.
And so I guess because of the geographical location, it has a lot of like borrowings from both Italian and German, or what is
Um,
it? We have to probably talk about how standard German like was shaped after the German states were formed, and also the same with Italian. The standard Italian was created in the late 1800s, so it's quite messy. But what can you say about the
um,
situation?
I think that Ladin, it's also the Ladin in various valleys has been influenced by German or Italian to a different level. Because the valleys of Gardena and Valbadia, which are both in the region of South Tyrol, they border to the north and west with German-speaking areas. And so people had a lot more interaction with German speakers. And so those variations of Latin were much more influenced by German. While the Valley of Fascia, for example, if you leave the valley, you reach an Italian-speaking area, and so people there had a lot less contact with the German language. They still have some German words that they used that they use, but yeah, the influence there was less, and those are also differences that you then see across the valleys. That some would use more German words sometimes, and sometimes more Italian words. But Latin is basically the way I would define it is it's a Romance language. It's a remnant of Latin, which in the case of Gardiner at least is heavily influenced by Bavarian, specifically by
Mm,
Bavarian, because people until recently they didn't speak standard German. Also in the region of South Tyrol, everybody spoke dialect, Tyrolean dialect, which is a Bavarian dialect. And the phonetics of Gardena, of the Latin of Gardena, are very similar to Bavarian. There is a lot of sounds that are the same, and there is also a lot of vocabulary for which we don't even, there is no Latin word for it. Yeah. For example, one word that we use is the word for must. I must do, which we say "masai," and I must is "je muss," and in Bavarian it's "I muss." So it's almost the same
yeah,
actually, even though
yeah,
it's a different language family.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are there certain fields where the vocabulary comes from, like agriculture or some specific fields, or is it like random?
You mean where the German vocabulary comes from?
German, yeah.
I've never thought about that. Not sure. It can be rather random things. For example, yeah, like some objects, like a fountain. What I'm not sure how to call it in English. If you have like like a tree trunk and you
Mhm.
make a fountain out of it, like a long one where animals can drink.
Oh yeah,
That is
yeah, I know.
called
Yeah.
yeah, that is called Drock, and that comes from the German word Trog. So that is a word that comes from German, but I'm not sure about other if generally words in agriculture would come from German. Yeah, I'm not sure about that now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So let's not say anything about this if we are not sure.
Yeah, I mean, because for example, then the corn that you harvest, that is called blava, which I think is related to the French word blé. Um, um, and in Italian, the word is different. I'm not sure now what it is.
Yeah,
So it can be quite mixed. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And in your childhood, the first language you learned from your parents and also grandparents all were speaking Latin at home.
Yeah, yeah. So most people in Gardena, I would say most people grow up in a household where they speak Latin, although there are quite a few, and I think sadly a growing number who speak German or Italian at home. Probably more German than Italian in the case of Gardena. But in my case, I grew up in a household where we spoke Latin all the time. Although I do speak, and I still always speak German to my father, and I speak standard German with him, which is quite weird in
Yeah,
South Tyrol, because in South Tyrol everybody speaks German dialect, and speaking standard German sounds almost a bit too posh or so.
yeah,
But I basically, he started speaking standard German with me because he thought it would help me to learn a more useful language from a young age. And now we are still doing that. So if I am with my family, we all speak Latin. But if I talk only me to my father, then I speak German. But if it's me, my father, and my mother, then it's Latin. And that's something that you see where I grew up quite a lot when you also among friends. I still have a group of friends in the hometown where I grew up, and most of them speak Latin. And when we are together, we all speak Latin. But there is one who understands Latin but prefers speaking Italian. So when I talk to her, I speak Italian, but then I turn to the others and I speak Latin.
yeah.
And yeah, that's quite a common phenomenon. And with my grandparents, I also spoke Latin all the time with my grandparents on my mother's side. On my father's side, it's a bit weirder there. I think we mostly spoke German. I mostly spoke German with them when I was younger. And in recent years, I started speaking Latin with them. It just kind of, at some point, I just felt like, yeah, why are we speaking German with each other, and then we just started speaking Latin, and now we mostly speak that.
Okay, that's
Uh,
interesting. So you
yeah.
spoke standard German and they spoke Tyrolean dialect of Bavarian or also
Um,
standard German?
No, also standard German with my grandparents, yeah. And in South Tyrol itself, maybe I should zoom out a bit to talk about South Tyrol in general.
Hmm.
So South Tyrol is a region in Italy where I think around 70% of the population is native German speaking. And the remaining 30% is 25% is Italian speaking, and only 5% is Latin speaking. And those who speak Latin, there is nobody who is a monolingual Latin speaker, and I think that has been the case for several centuries.
Yeah.
I think we would have to go back a very long time to find a monolingual Latin
Yeah.
speaker, because also back then when people were farmers, if they wanted to buy a new cow, they had to go to the market, and then there everybody spoke German, so they had to speak German just to go buy something or so. Um, and Yeah, and so that's why German and Latin have been both present in Gardena for a very long time, and that's why for people it's very easy to switch between one and the other. And many people also code switch a lot. between the languages. Or yeah, when they speak Ladin, they code switch using a lot of German words.
Yeah, okay.
Mm.
And in school or kindergarten, when did you start like learning Italian or German formally?
The school system in South Tyrol is quite interesting. I don't agree necessarily with everything about how the school system works, but there is basically in most of South Tyrol there are either German schools or Italian schools. And in German schools, everything is taught in German, and people learn Italian kind of as a foreign language for 4 hours a week, the same way that they learn English, even though they live in Italy. And in Italian schools, everything is in Italian, and people learn German 4 hours a week, and almost most people never really reach fluency in it. At least the Italian speakers don't reach fluency in German. Among the German speakers, there's also a lot of people who struggle to have a conversation in Italian. In the Latin valleys, however, since we are kind of neither Italian nor German, all the schools are half-half. So we had half the subjects in Italian and half in German. So we would have maybe history in German and geography in Italian. And in primary school, where you don't have so many different teachers yet, it might be the same teacher teaching history and geography.
Yeah.
So now he speaks German because it's history, and now he speaks Italian because it's geography. But after school, we would speak Latin with him.
Oh
And
wow.
this is just completely normal for everybody. Nobody ever thought that this would be weird or so. Yeah. So everybody in my class, when I was in primary school, everybody could speak Latin, German, Italian, all three of them fluently. And I think that really tells me that language ability and learning languages has very little to do with um, intelligence or talent or so. Because also, if we look at generally, every person in the world can speak their own mother tongue fluently, no matter how intelligent they are. And also, we had, I think, in primary school, a classmate. I'm not sure if she had, like Down syndrome or something. But yeah, she also could speak German, Italian, Latin,
Yeah.
uh, all three fluently. But then she would not be able to do math or something. Um, and that shows to me that learning languages is a very, very different intellectual process compared to learning physics or maths or so on.
Wow, that's so interesting. Like trilingual kids.
Mm.
So maybe outside of South Tyrol, where they have just Italian or German schools, would be better just to do like that.
Yeah, and there is but this has political reasons, and this is something that I didn't understand back then, but I understand better now. And to explain it, we would have to look a bit at the history of South Tyrol. So South Tyrol, it's called South Tyrol because it's the southern part of a region called Tyrol, which had been a region and a county also that belonged to Austria under the Habsburg Empire and later belonged to Austria-Hungary for, I don't know, 1,000 years almost. I mean, in the whole time. And after World War One, at the end of World War One, the southern part was annexed by Italy, and that was a rather dark time because that was under fascism, and the goal of the fascist government was to completely Italianize South Tyrol by prohibiting the use of German and Latin, by forcing people to change their names to have an Italian name and Italian surname if they wanted to be able to get a job, and also by forcing people from other regions of Italy to migrate there in order to Italianize the local population. After World War II, after the fascist government fell, a lot of politicians in South Tyrol hoped to bring the region back to Austria, but that didn't happen. And that has also wider reasons that the United States and Britain and so on did not agree with that, but everybody agreed that South Tyrol should receive an autonomy, should become an autonomous region within which the German language has the same status as the Italian language. Ladin language was not mentioned because back then nobody cared about it, nobody even knew what it is, and many people also claim that it is not a language; it's just a dialect. But ever since then, and this is now coming back to the school system, ever since then, basically in South Tyrol, it's very similar to other regions like Luxembourg, I think, or Belgium, maybe Brussels, where two languages exist and two languages are official. And you can, for example, in South Tyrol, by law, it should be that if you go to the post office or you go to the municipality, if you want to speak Italian, they should answer in Italian, and if you want to speak in German, they should answer in German. It should be possible, and it is possible to live in South Tyrol without speaking Italian. And I know people who live in South Tyrol who are from Germany and moved there, and they told me they would really like to learn Italian, but they never have the chance to speak it, which sounds
Yeah.
ridiculous in Italy, but yeah, so it's a very interesting region. And why the school system is like that, that some schools are only Italian and they barely teach German, and some schools are only German and barely teach Italian. It is a political decision to maintain this distinction between the German people and the Italian people, because as long as you keep them separated, people can continue to claim that we are a minority and therefore we need an autonomy. We need to be an autonomous region. We are a minority. If everybody starts mixing, then at some point you will no longer be a minority. That's at least what I heard people say. This is not something that you would read anywhere officially, at least, but that's a bit my understanding, which is sad, but that's many political things are.
Yeah. So in school, the Italian and German varieties, were they the standard versions, or was it like standard but spoken with the slight accent, dialect, or how was it?
So South Tyrol uses, in terms of German, South Tyrol actually uses officially Austrian German. For those who are not very familiar with it, and most German speakers even are not familiar with this, there are different variations of official German. There is an official German, and there is also an official Austrian German, which uses some different words compared to German. For example, the word heuer to mean this year, or the word Jänner for January. So those are the official terms used in South Tyrol. In school, German is always taught using standard German. The teacher always speaks standard German. But yeah, they speak with an accent. They don't have the same accent like somebody from Germany, in the same way that most people in Austria also don't have the same accent like someone from Germany. And yeah, the dialect has a strong influence. There are also some people, native German speakers in South Tyrol, who yeah, they do make sometimes some grammar mistakes when they speak standard German because they just always speak dialect, and the dialect has some different grammar rules or some grammatical constructions don't exist, and so they're not really used to using them. Regarding Italian, there is not really a very specific Italian dialect spoken in South Tyrol because Italian was barely spoken until the 1920s. And most people who are Italian speakers now, they moved to South Tyrol in the 20s and 30s, but they moved from various different regions, from Genoa to Florence to Naples, and so they all just speak a very rather neutral Italian.
Mm,
If we go further south from South Tyrol, there is a region called Trentino, which was actually also part of Tyrol, but that's a different story. But there, people would speak Venetian, Veneto, and also a bit Lombard. Yeah.
yeah. And in your school time, what optional languages did you have? Like primary school and also later after primary school, high school, university?
Not so many actually. So in primary school and middle school, there were no optional languages. But I guess we were already learning a lot of languages
Yeah.
because half the subjects were in Italian, half in German, and then we had like 3 or 4 hours a week of Ladin and 3 4 hours a week of English. So we already covered four languages.
Yeah.
And in high school, so it's basically the school system in Italy has a primary school of 5 years, and then a middle school of 3 years, and then a high school of again 5 years. And high school in Italy works in the way that there are very different types of high school. There is like a scientific high school where you learn a lot of math, physics, and so on. There's a classic high school. It's called classic Liceo Classico, where you would learn Latin and ancient Greek. I went to the scientific high school where you also learn Latin, and then there is also a language high school where you would learn French or Spanish. I think there was a time like ten years ago when they also started teaching Russian. I'm not sure if that's still the case now. Yeah. So yeah, we did not learn so many other languages, but it was during high school where my interest for learning other languages was born, and where I then actively wanted to learn other languages and try to find language courses where I could learn, yeah, where I could learn another language.
And what caused the interest?
Um, I guess it started. I guess this might be similar for lots of people that you hear another language and you find it very interesting. It intrigues you and you feel like you want to also speak it or you want to find out more about it. The way that I remember it is that the first interest for me was Dutch, and that was given by the fact that in South Tyrol, so South Tyrol being in the mountains is very touristic because in winter you can ski there, and in summer you can go hiking and climbing. And my parents also have a bed and breakfast, so we also had some international tourists staying there. And we did sometimes have Dutch tourists. And when I heard them speaking, I was like, wow, this is so interesting because I knew that Tyrolean Bavarian and I knew Standard German. And to me back then, this was like a kind of Northern German or
Hmm.
so. I hope no Dutch person gets offended here, but and I thought that yeah, this just sounds so interesting. I would like to find out more about it. And so I went online and tried to find a Dutch course, Dutch language. Back then, there was no Duolingo or so. So I just found some very short, brief course, and I didn't really learn much because also back then I didn't have any goals really. Like I just found it interesting, so I just started and I learned a bit, but I never had a goal that I want to become fluent or I want to study 20 minutes a day or so. It was just a bit like an adventure. Yeah.
Yeah. How old were you then?
That was when I was 14. Yeah.
What
So
was your birth year?
I'm born in 1990, so this was in 2004.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. I'm also the same year,
Oh,
1990.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
October.
Okay. I'm born in April.
Oh, okay, a bit older.
Yeah.
So, you started learning Dutch, and how did it go?
I didn't. I learned it only a little bit during the summer holidays, and then when September came and I went back to school, I didn't really pursue it further. I guess it's also that I didn't know really how to approach it. I just found it interesting that I had learned how to say a couple of sentences and that yeah that I had a bit understood what it sounds like and so on. But I think back then, especially in that age when I was 14, 15, I generally did a lot of things just without having any long-term plans or so, just trying a little bit this or that. But then 1 year later came a time where I got much more invested in language learning. And that was when I saw in the corridor of our school, they had put a paper there that they're offering two language courses, one in Spanish and one in Russian. And I was like, wow, that sounds really interesting. I would like to learn those. And I thought, but Spanish is probably rather easy for
Hmm.
someone who can speak Italian. And now I'm still young, so I should learn Russian since I still have a
Yeah.
young brain. I should learn something more difficult.
Yeah.
And so I guess there you can also see the interest that I had for languages. That for me it was like, yeah, of course I want to attend a Russian course. Why not? Like I didn't even question it, even though I knew pretty much nothing about Russian. I didn't even know it was written in a different alphabet. And we had to then they told us we had to go to a bookshop to buy this textbook. And so I went, I opened the textbook and I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Like,
Nice surprise.
what kind of writing system is this?
Yeah.
And then I attended this Russian course, and I just fell in love with it. Like I had rarely loved something up to that point in my life, like I loved learning Russian. Just yeah, the way also that the teacher told explained things and so on. It came to a point where I spent more time after school when I got home eating lunch, and then I started learning Russian, which was not part of my school. It was just a course like extra. And my grades started getting worse, and my parents threatened me that if my grades didn't get better, I would no longer be allowed to go to Russian class,
Oh my God.
which to me was shocking. And so okay, I should study maths as well, even though I don't like it
Yeah.
so much. Um, yeah, and that course only lasted for like 8 months, and then it stopped. And after that, I also stopped learning Russian because also back then I still didn't have really the discipline to really study it by myself. And yeah, so then I was 16, and yeah.
Yeah. What other languages have you studied, and why?
I then started when I was 18. I went in the summer. I went for a month to England. My parents sent me there in order to improve my English, and there were a lot of Spanish students there also, and I hung out with them, and I started speaking Spanish a little bit with them. And I started finding Spanish really cool, and I wanted to learn it more. And so while I was in England, I was learning English in school, and after school I would go home and then look up on internet Spanish and like practice Spanish. But also that then didn't last much. So it was only for that 1 month there, and after that I didn't really continue much learning Spanish. And it wasn't until I attended university that I really started learning languages more persistently and learning them by myself. In my second year of university, when I was 21, I still had this memory from the Russian course that I attended, and I really wanted to learn more about it. And so I had found a way to attend a Russian summer class in Moscow. Now, with the current political situation may sound a bit weird, but yeah, this was in 2011, and for me, it was with my worldview back then. It was like, yeah, this like mysterious country and the big forests and this and Siberia, and I just sounded everything so dreamlike, and I looked forward to going there. And then I spent 6 months, 6 weeks, sorry, 6 weeks in Moscow, attending Russian classes there. And after that, I really felt like I want to keep learning languages a lot. And I came back and I thought to myself, on the flight back from Moscow, I thought to myself, actually, it's a scandal that I cannot speak French. Like French
Yeah.
has been, until World War II, was the main language in Europe that everybody learned. And I know nothing about French. Like this is unacceptable. And so I went back, and back then I was studying engineering, and I started attending French classes at my university. I was studying at a university in Scotland,
Oh, wow.
and yeah,
How long?
for 3 years, so the whole bachelor's degree. And I started attending a French class there, and I found it really interesting. And I attended it for about a year, and then I decided to start watching a lot of content in French. And then I started watching YouTubers in French, and then I started watching some anime in French. I watched the whole Dragon Ball series dubbed in French. And
Where can you find that? I really love Dragon Ball. If that's on
ah,
YouTube, I will watch it.
yeah, you can Google it. I mean, I cannot mention any specific websites also because they're probably not very official
Oh,
websites, I
yeah,
would
yeah,
say.
yeah.
But if you Google Dragon Ball and then VF, which stands for Version Française, that's usually how I found it.
Hmm.
And then I basically, yeah, watched the entire series. At the first episode, I probably understood 20%, and I was a bit shocked at myself that I only understood so little.
Yeah.
And by episode 150, I understood pretty much everything. Um, yeah.
So it started from Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z. I mean, Dragon Ball doesn't have that many episode, I guess.
I
It was
the
like the
first
whole
the
series.
first Dragon Ball series has 153 episodes, I think,
Oh,
and I
okay.
and I watched all of those. After that, I watched some other anime in French. I think I watched Detective Conan. And yeah, and I think French was then the first language that I really kind of started learning by myself and really reached a level of fluency where I really could like watch films in it, which with Russian or Dutch, I had never reached that. Um, And yeah, it was after that that I started watching Detective Conan, and it was Detective Conan. I'm not sure if you know that.
No,
Okay,
I don't know.
it's one that is quite popular also in Italy. It's yeah, it's about a detective boy who solves cases and who lives in Tokyo. And in that series, it's always there's always like real places. Like they're in Tokyo, they go to real places in Tokyo, and they go to Osaka. And I really fell in love with that. And I fell in love with Japan. And then I thought I must study Japanese.
Yeah.
And so after having learned French for 2.5 years, I kind of parked it and started learning Japanese. And I was, again, I didn't know anything about Japanese, just like with Russian, just naively, I jumped into it. And yeah, I don't know. It was a time I fell in love with Japanese. Like, I think it's still now one of the biggest loves that I've had in my life, if we count languages, women, and so on. One of the things I've loved, music, one of the things
Yeah.
I've loved the most. I just, at some point, I woke up every day and I just sat down and learned Japanese for an hour, and I loved every minute of it. I just found the language so beautiful, poetic. And then learning the characters, learning the Chinese characters, just everything was so magical. But at the same time, I was so shocked at how difficult Japanese was. I thought Russian was difficult, but then I realized Russian is at least a European language with a kind of Indo-European way of thinking, while Japanese is just a completely different world.
Hmm.
Um, that every word that exists in English kind of also exists, or in German also exists in Russian, but in Japanese, there's many words that don't exist, that you just say it in a very different way.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, but I was so in love with it that I just pushed myself and I kept on learning it. And so that was when I was 22, 23, and I continued to learn Japanese for 3 years, I would say. And yeah, that's the language in which I have invested the most sweat and tears. And then I stopped after some time. And after that, the ball just kept rolling. Like I then, after 3 years of Japanese, I felt like, yeah, this is enough. Now I would like to learn Chinese, and then I started learning Chinese, and then I started learning on the side a little bit of Portuguese and Spanish and so on. And after that, I've been really yeah, dabbling a lot in different languages.
Yeah. How did stammering affect your language learning?
Um, It's didn't affect it so much, I must say. I guess stammering might also be different for different people. I started stammering when I was around 5 years old, and I actually rarely felt very bad about it or so. I just, from a young age, kind of accepted that, yeah, I just stammer, and I think I can never cure that, so I just accept it. Um, but yeah, there were times also with French where I do notice that I stammer differently in different languages. Like in French, I stammer a lot more than in English. Um, I don't think it has necessarily to do with whether I know the language well or not. It has more to do with how the intonation is in different languages, the types of sounds, and so on. And yeah, so the fact that I stammered more in French, for example, made me less happy about speaking French, I would say, and that did affect me. But yeah, I've been working on that. I've been working on myself, trying to find more balance and being able to speak more fluently. Um, And yeah, I would say that's.
Yeah. So you feel like in French you stammer the most? What do you think? Is there a language where you felt like you don't stammer almost at all, or much less than others?
Um, yeah, I would say that in English I don't stammer much, and in German also I don't stammer much. I stammer a lot more in French, and in Russian I also stammer a lot. And in I think in Chinese also.
Yeah,
More. I think it might be also due to the tones that I
yeah,
feel like, oh, I have to say that the tone in this way, and then that maybe puts a block or so.
yeah. What do you think? Which phonemes, which letters usually
I
cause?
find it more difficult to pronounce words where the intonation is towards the end of the word.
Mhm,
I find it easier to say prosper than um, uh, pros pr- prosper, you know. So because if it's at the beginning of the word, I can start with that, and then it works.
mhm,
And if it's at the end of the word, then yeah, I just find it more difficult. And I would say that French and also Russian very often have the intonation more towards the end, um,
yeah.
like Blagadat or Malako. So it's always like more towards the end, and in French also. Yeah.
Finnish would be perfect for you. It's always on the first syllable.
Ah, is it? Okay. Then
Yeah,
I should
it's quite
learn.
common in Uralic languages. It's not in every. I cannot remember, was it Udmurt or which one, but almost okay. Estonian also not, but most of the Uralic languages are like this.
Yeah.
So you definitely have to start in some point Finnish or another Uralic language.
Mm.
So from all these languages, what do you think? Which one was the easiest and most difficult, and in which way?
Um, well, I guess the easiest languages are, of course, those that are most related to a language that I already spoke. And I was very lucky that I grew up with German and Italian because those are two languages from two completely different families. And thanks to that, for me, Spanish, Portuguese, French are very intuitive and easy, but also Swedish and Dutch are very intuitive, even though they are different. And so I would say that all Germanic and all Romance languages were relatively easy to learn. Although, of course, if you really want to reach an advanced level, that takes a lot of time. And I guess those that I learned at a later stage were even easier because at that point I already had a better understanding of how I should learn them. So, for example, French was a language that I learned earlier on, and there I still spend much more time with textbooks and so on. While when I learned Portuguese, I mostly just started watching content, watching videos, and I watched again Dragon Ball, but in Portuguese. Which is something that I find generally, I find it I am a person who likes to watch the same film again and again if it's one that I really like. And I think that with language learning, that really helps because if you watch something in another language that you've seen already, then it really helps you with understanding. And if you watch something that you've never seen, then you will struggle to understand and you will lose interest in it. So I think that's quite key. That's quite key in watching content in various languages. And yeah, eventually I did also learn Dutch to fluency, and I actually learned it in a time when I was living in Luxembourg. So when I was 25 in 2015, I did an internship in Luxembourg, and I was living together with a Flemish man who was we actually spoke German the whole time because he had learned German, and then I
Yeah.
said to him that I would like to to learn Dutch, and he was not so enthusiastic at first at practicing it with me, but then I continued learning it by myself, and then we started speaking a little bit of Dutch, and really after 2, 3 months we were speaking only Dutch. So
Yeah.
that really went like 2, 3 months, and I spoke only Dutch. And yeah, because with these languages that are very close, like Dutch and German, you're not really learning a new language. You're just learning how the language is different from the language that you already speak.
Hmm.
So that you just learn how the German words are pronounced in Dutch. Basically, that's how
Yeah.
it is. And it's very similar to also if I learned Spanish, I just learn how the Italian words are pronounced in Spanish and those few occasional words that are different. So those were the easiest, I would say. The most difficult were definitely all the East Asian languages, Japanese, ch Chinese. I also learned a little bit of Korean, but I don't know much anymore. But yeah, those are definitely the most difficult. Difficult for various reasons, but mostly because um, yeah, there is almost no connection to any European language in both grammar and in vocabulary. And it's also that you have to learn everything new, like even if you learn a Slavic language, but they have a lot of words that are from Latin or from Greek that are the same. Like if you learn Russian, but then they have like, I don't know, competitia or religia or so, like some words that are from Latin or Greek. But if you learn Chinese or Japanese, every word is completely different. There is no connection at all. And there's also, I find this in both Japanese and Chinese, there are so many ways of saying the same thing. There is always like, oh, you can use this word or that word or that word. And yeah, it just never ends.
Yeah. But
uh,
when you know Chinese, that's then the Latin of Asia, East Asia at least,
yeah, yes, definitely, yes.
li library, Tushuwan, like
Yeah,
Toshokan, Korean.
Toshokan, yeah.
It was like Toshokwan,
Yeah.
Toshok Toshokwan, something similar.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. And that's something that I find makes learning Japanese so difficult that I think when you learn Japanese, you're actually learning two languages. You're learning Japanese, but you're also learning ch ch Chinese at the same time because you're just learning so many Chinese words. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I've got a book with 700 common words in Chinese, Korean, Japanese. I've like sometimes uh, read the book and seen how the same word ha if it has changed a bit, and it's quite interesting.
Mm.
For you, how hard was learning new scripts? Well, Russian, I guess, was pretty easy, but then Japanese is quite crazy with free
Um,
scripts.
Yeah, I guess that is affected a lot by whether you like learning new scripts. And I really love scripts. I mean, I love scripts to the level that for a long time, I wanted to learn Thai for the only reason that I find the script so beautiful. That's why I want to learn Thai.
Yeah,
And I almost don't want to learn Vietnamese because they don't have their own script. So I don't respect them. Sorry, it's a bit exaggerated. But, no, I really like scripts, and I don't find them necessarily difficult to learn because because in order to learn, um, I mean, one really good way to learn is to read a lot. And if you read a lot, then you automatically keep seeing the script again and again and again. And then that's how you remember it. Um, I find learning certain words much more difficult than learning a script because I also learned the Arabic script because I learned Persian for some time. That was in 2018 that I learned Persian for about six months. And also there, like the Arabic script, Persian Arabic script, I learned it rather quickly because when you keep reading, when you learn new words, when you learn a word, then you also see how it's written, and so you automatically keep seeing the same script again and again.
Did
The
you did you learn alone or how? Because I think with
Yeah,
Persian, it's pretty hard if you don't have the transliterations. Because I practiced Persian with the native, and I learned to the words when I was like guessing the vowels, and then I started like getting the intuition of what
Mm.
how to pronounce it.
Yeah, that is one issue when you learn Persian. I did learn it just by myself, but I just used a lot of different tools to find out how the words are pronounced. There is a tool called Forvo,
Oh, yeah.
forvo.com, where you can just paste in any word and then it pronounces it. And there I was often quite surprised by the fact that a word in Persian is written in a certain way, but then pronounced rather differently. But then I just kept on like listening to it and seeing how the word is spelled and listening. And then I, with time, got a feeling for how the word should be pronounced. But yeah, that is one of the issues with Persian. A much bigger issue in with Persian, I find, is that there is one way in which you write and there is one way in which you speak. And the way that people write, also write books, nobody talks like that. But every course that you find, they teach it in the written way. But then when you learn that, you cannot talk like that. Um, and Yeah, that's a bit of an issue that I had to find out for myself that and that is I also use a lot a tool called Wiktionary. It's the Wiki Dictionary, which I find a really nice tool for several languages. And also there, if you paste in some uh, Persian word, it would show you the IPA pronunciation of the word, and it would show you the IPA of colloquial Iranian Persian and the IPA in Dari in Afghanistan and so on. And it would show you the conjugation of the literal form, which is used in books, and the colloquial form, which is how people actually speak.
And sometimes the etymology and have a like big list of languages which have like similar word.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I use it also. Wiktionary is great.
Yeah, and it's also for other languages like Chinese. When you look up a word there, it also shows you the synonyms of this word in various Chinese languages, in Cantonese or Min or
Mm,
so on. And that's also really interesting, I find.
yeah. So after studying all the languages and using different resources, how did you come to the point where you decided that you want to create your own language app?
Yeah, that happened. This decision of creating my own language app happened around 1.5 years ago. I had for a very long time that people ask me, like, yeah, you're so passionate about languages. Why don't you do a job with languages? Why do you work as an engineer? And I've said that, yeah, but I don't know what kind of job I should do, like translator. I don't think I would like to do that. I could teach languages online, but for the rest of my life, I don't know. Like, and then there was just never something that appealed to me. And about 1.5 years ago, I was talking to someone about having like some side income, or like that next to my job, if I could work on something to generate some side income. And that's when I was thinking about, yeah, side income. What is something that I'm passionate about? Well, languages, of course. Why couldn't I do something on my side to earn money through languages? And then it suddenly made sense just looking at it from not from this is my main job, but this is like a side project. And
Hmm.
just looking at it from that different point of view, suddenly I felt like, yes, I can do this. And then I just had this idea of creating a language app that would teach languages based on the method that I mainly use. I had been, thinking for many years that, if I taught German, for example, then I would teach it in this way or in that way. But I never did. I never taught anybody. I just, thought about how I would do it. And then in the end, that led to this decision. So I started this app, LinguaMerse, and the first version came out a couple of months ago. So it's still very new. And the first version offers the possibility of learning German. And I'm planning now through the course of this year, 2025, to add also French and Spanish, and then further languages along the way. And yeah, and the way that this app works, it has basically three components. They are called learn, read, and practice. Learn is a guided course where people go through different chapters and they learn new sentences, and there are also some explanations and so on. Then read is like a library library with lots of articles where people can read articles, and they can save words in this article. They can translate words and then create flashcards out of these words. And practice is then the last section where people can then practice these flashcards that they've read in the articles or that they have learned from the language courses. And the way that I've designed this German course is that initially, in the first 10 chapters or so, I use only words that have an equivalent word in English. So only German words like warm, kalt, lang, or so on. Mann, basically words that have an equivalent word in English, because I think that that actually should be really easy to get started in the language in that way, and to get a feeling for the language. And then later on, I would start introducing more and more words which are different from English.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you have any plans to add the Korean or
Um,
some Asian languages?
At some point, definitely, but it not in this year. Maybe next year. Maybe in 2 years. It is quite a
Yeah.
lot of work to add every language, because I need to create this course. I need to think about how to make the course, create the articles, and so on. And it's also now it's still new, so I also want to first see whether it works well with the languages that are there,
Oh,
with German, French, Spanish, whether people like the app, whether people like the method. And then I would then gradually add other languages. And also with adding Japanese, Chinese, and so on, I think that would require adding also some other tools or so that you can basically that you can read, that it would show the Chinese text also with um, pinyin and so on, or the Japanese text, so that people can read it more easily. But yeah, those are definitely my dream is definitely to add as many languages as possible, and I would also like to add Ladin at some point. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. If any one of the viewers, if you would like to check out Linguamers, I would really appreciate your feedback, how you like it, and if you have any tips on it. Thanks. Yeah.
We will have all the links down below the
Yeah.
video. Uh, I had one question about the. Oh yeah. So are you expanding the content currently, or how much time do you have for the app currently besides your job? And so, if I remember correctly, was it that people can like upload from the internet the reading section articles?
Yeah, also there is also a function in the library. There are a lot of articles there. I have created around 600 articles on in different categories, different topics from history to travel and so on, and at different levels, A1, A2, B1. And there is also a function that people can upload their own articles and can read them there. That function also exists. Regarding the time, yeah, that has been a bit of an issue, of course, because I have a job. I basically work from Monday to Friday, and so I don't have so much time to work on this app. And that has also caused me a bit of stress through this last year, and I had to learn a lot about how to manage time more efficiently. So it's been difficult, but it has also been a really nice learning experience. Yeah, we'll see how it goes on. Yeah.
Yeah. Currently, do you do all yourself, or does the team that like build it still maintain it, or is it now they build it and you maintain it yourself, or what's the situation?
Um, I um, I did hire someone to develop it because I don't have the expertise to develop such an app and not the time either. So I did see this a little bit as I work as a civil engineer, and the money that I earn there, I use that to pay these developers. Now, since the first version is out, there's not much that needs to be, there's not much maintenance work or so that needs to be done. But yeah, when I plan now during the course of this year, I plan to add French and Spanish, and I also plan to add more functions. For example, with the flashcards right now, you can basically practice the words that you learned with flashcards, but it's just a, let's say, dumb system that it just keeps showing the next flashcard and the next, but it doesn't have a spaced repetition function. And I wanted to add a spaced repetition function, just like Anki or so. So there I would work again with these developers to add all these features. Yeah.
Yeah. So spaced. So currently it shows just all. Um, so when you have the read section, I can remember I was like, you could, if I didn't know a word in the article, I would click it and I would see the translation and then mark it as what were the options? I know this.
Yeah, whether this is a known word or uncertain word, or unknown. Well, unknown means that you haven't seen this word yet, but once you click on it, you've obviously seen it. So you can mark it as uncertain or known. And so the app always knows how many words you know and which words you know and which words you are not certain about. And that also helps you to, the app helps you to recommend to you articles based on how many words in this article that you know and how many you are not certain about, so that you can always read articles where you know like 80% of the words. And so that makes it that you are learning step by step. That's called comprehensible input, that you basically read articles which where you understand most of it and you're learning a few new words every time.
Mm. The
Yeah.
flashcards are made of the words that you both know and don't know, or just the ones you don't know.
You can create flashcards from any word. So when you read an article, if you click on a word, besides categorizing the word as known or unknown, there's also a button create flashcard. So you can just click there, and then it creates a flashcard. And right now, it then says if when you practice, the way it works is that every flashcard you can then say whether you knew it or not. And if you didn't know it, it will appear again. And if you knew it, then it won't appear again.
Mm. Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but and this is something that where I would like to offer different options, like in Anki, where there's like maybe four levels of you know it not at all, or a little bit, or a little bit more, and so it will come back sooner or later, and so on.
Yeah. Okay. What else? I guess the features of the app are now people know the fe basic features. So there is the freemium and also the premium version.
Yeah, exactly. So there is a version which is free where you can basically the in the learn part where you follow a course. Right now, it's that you can do the first three chapters. They are free, and in total there are now 25 chapters, I think. And then you would have to subscribe to do the other chapters. And in the articles, you can read as many articles as you want, but when you create flashcards or translate words, there is a monthly amount of words that you can translate and create flashcards from, which right now is 50 words a month. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
and for the rest, you would have to subscribe. Because yeah, of course, it also costs money to develop this and to maintain it, and so I also try to get that money back somehow.
Yeah, yeah. So everyone check the app Lingomers from the link below. So in the future, what's your ultimate goal? Do you want to, if it becomes more successful, would you want to only do that or keep your job and have the app as a side project, or what's your goal in the future?
Well, I don't know if my manager's watching this, but I guess I mean my dream would be, I guess, one day to work to spend my whole time working on this app because I really like it a lot. I really enjoy thinking about how to make the app more attractive, what features to add, how to make the language courses more interesting. And when we would add new languages, think about how to do it because I try to make every language different. For example, the Spanish course is not just the German course copied because, like I said, in the German course, we focus a lot on learning the words that are similar to English. With the Spanish course, we can also do that at first, but then those would be different words. And with the uh, Japanese course or Russian course, yeah, at first you would need to learn the alphabet and so on. And that's something that I really like to think about how to make each course different. So yeah, that would be definitely long-term dream, I would say. Um, but yeah, I don't know how far that dream still is. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And any language goals for this year or for the future?
Yeah, for this year, I have actually told myself because over the last 5, 6 years, I've been not very consistently studying one language for a longer time. I studied Portuguese for 3 months and then stopped, and then I studied Swedish for 3 months and then stopped, and so on. So I did decide that this year I want to study only Mandarin for the whole year, only Mandarin, not get this distracted. But yeah, then the other day I was listening to an audiobook in Portuguese again, and but of course that's
Yeah.
fine. But another dilemma for this year is that I have been invited to attend a wedding in Indonesia in
Yeah.
August. And I thought that could be a reason to learn Indonesian because so many
Yeah.
people say that in Indonesian is very easy. And when would I ever learn that except if I'm
Yeah.
really traveling there? But yeah, now I told myself that this year I want to focus on Mandarin. So yeah, these are the dilemmas of a polyglot dilemmas.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
Every language nerd has
yeah.
the same problem.
But for my, I would say my life goal with learning languages before I die, let's say, my dream would be to reach a comfortable level of fluency in the three languages, Chinese, Japanese, Russian. So in
Yeah.
these three languages, which for me are like the big giants in terms of, difficulty and also rather large languages. If I could reach a comfortable level of fluency in all three, then I can die happily. Yeah.
Well, let's hope that happens. So, thank you, Alex, so much
Yeah,
for
thanks a lot.
coming to the podcast. It was a really interesting discussion.
Yeah, thank you too. It was really nice of you to invite me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone, and see you in the next episode. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.